Hey, welcome back. I'm really glad you're here for episode 2. If you haven't listened to episode 1 yet, I'd encourage you to start there. But the short version is this. There's an instinct that lives in your body. It knows things your brain doesn't. And for a lot of women in midlife, it has gotten very loud. Now, we talked about what that is in human design and why it's real and why it matters. Today, we're talking about the thing that gets in the way of it, your mind. Not because your mind is the enemy, because it's not, but because there's something specific happening in the minds of a lot of women right now that's keeping them stuck in a life that stopped fitting years ago. So let's get into it. I'm Suzanne Arjona, and this is Life on Your Terms, where human design meets bold truth and permission to be real. You've played the role, you did what was expected, and now it's time to show up as you. Okay, so you know that instinct we talked about last episode? The quiet, persistent knowing that something has to change? Here's what usually happens right after it shows up. Your mind wakes up, and it has thoughts, a lot of them. Very convincing ones. But the money is good. But what would I even do instead? But I've worked so hard to get here. But what will people think? But what if I'm wrong? But who does this at my age? And you go around and around and around with it. The inner knowing pulling in one direction, the mind building a very thorough case in the other. And you end up exhausted and no closer to clarity than when you started. And you might have concluded from this that you're someone who overthinks, okay? Or that you're not brave enough, or that you just need to think about it more until the right answer becomes obvious. But here's what I actually think is happening, and it has everything to do with your human design. Now, in human design, we have 9 energy centers in our chart. Some of them are defined, meaning they operate consistently, they're a reliable part of how you move through the world. And some of them are open, meaning they're receptive. They take in energy from the outside and they amplify it. Open centers are not a weakness. They're actually where some of our deepest wisdom comes from. But they're also where we're most susceptible to conditioning, to taking on what isn't ours and mistaking it for our own truth. And 2 of the most impactful open centers when it comes to this particular kind of stuck are the head center and the ajna center. The head center is where mental pressure lives. The pressure to figure things out, to have answers, to understand. And if your head center is open, you're constantly receiving that pressure from the people and environments around you. And it can feel absolutely relentless. Now, the ajna center is our conceptual mind, our beliefs, our frameworks, the way we make sense of the world. And if your ajna is open, you have spent your entire life absorbing other people's certainty, other people's conclusions, other people's definitions of what a good life looks like. I live with both of these open centers, so I can share firsthand experience about the overthinking, the rabbit hole spirals, and the influence from other people's ideas of a perfect life. In the last episode, I talked about my divorce. It was something I knew needed to happen for years before I acted. But I was so caught up in the how can I make this happen? What will people think of me? What about the kids? All those logistics that I couldn't act. I stayed frozen, unable to think my way through it, when I should have been feeling my way through. Now here's why this hits so differently at midlife. If you're in your 40s or 50s, you have been absorbing and collecting and internalizing other people's definitions of success for a very long time. What a good career looks like, what a responsible woman does, what it means to be practical or realistic, what you owe to the life you've already built, And a lot of that logic made sense in context. It got you somewhere. It kept you safe in ways you probably needed at the time. But it also accumulated, layer after layer after layer, until what feels like your thinking is actually a combination of your mother's fears and your first boss's expectations and the cultural story about what women your age are supposed to want by now. You get the idea. And when your intuition, your instinct shows up, that clear body level, this isn't it feeling, all of that accumulated logic mobilizes against it because it's been living in you so long, it sounds like your own voice. This is one of the things I come back to again and again in human design, and I want to say it clearly. Your mind is brilliant. It's a wonderful tool for processing and analyzing and communicating, but it's not designed to be the thing that makes your biggest life decisions. Now, that's not a criticism of your intelligence. It's just not what the mind is for. The instinct we talked about in episode 1, that splenic body level knowing, it has access to information your mind will never have. It's reading the present moment in real time. It's tracking things below the level of conscious thought. Your mind is working from old data, from patterns and memories and other people's expectations that got filed away somewhere in your 30s. So when your instinct says, yes, this direction, and your mind says, but that makes no sense, that's not a sign that you need to think about it more. Those are two different systems doing what they're each designed to do, and your instinct is a lot more trustworthy for this particular job. Next, I want to name something that I think is really particular to this season in life. A lot of women I talk to describe a feeling somewhere in their mid-40s or into their 50s where the mental noise starts to get quieter on its own, where things that used to matter, the approval, the optics, the need to have it all make sense to other people, they just start to lose their charge. Now that's actually your system doing something really intelligent. In human design, there's a natural maturation process that happens across your lifetime. And part of what midlife brings, if you let it, is a loosening of the conditioning. A slow and sometimes disorienting process of all the accumulated logic starting to fall away and what's underneath starting to surface. The instinct gets louder because the noise that was drowning it out is finally starting to quiet. And the women who struggle most in this season are often the ones who interpret that quieting as a problem to solve rather than a door opening. When I was younger, I used to joke around that once I reached a certain age, I wouldn't care anymore, and I could say or do whatever I wanted and society would simply comply. Well, it turns out that there's actually some truth to this, but it's not about society complying. It's about me not caring as much about society's restrictions. So what do you actually do with a mind that won't stop arguing? Well, you stop trying to win the argument, for starters. Seriously, that's it. You stop engaging with the debate as if there's a right answer waiting at the end. Because here's what I've noticed. The more you argue with your mind, the more material it has to work with. You bring a concern, it generates 3 more. You resolve one worry, it finds another angle. It's very good at its job, and its job right now is to keep you where you are because that's what it knows. What actually moves the needle isn't thinking your way through it. It's coming back to your body, back to your instinct, back to your quiet knowing underneath all the noise. Every time the mental spiral starts up, gently, without judging yourself, move back to your body and what it feels. That's the practice. It's not glamorous. It's not complicated, but it's the one that actually works. In the next episode, we're talking about actually moving. Not the dramatic leap or the perfectly planned exit strategy, just what it looks like to start trusting your instinct enough to take that next step. I'll bring in some of what that has looked like in my own life and the lives of some of the women I've worked with. But for today, I want to leave you with just this one question to sit with. What is a belief you've been carrying about what your life should look like right now that might not actually be yours? Okay, let me say that again. What is a belief you've been carrying about what your life should look like right now that might not actually be yours? You don't have to answer it out loud. You don't have to do anything with it. Just let it be a question for a few days and notice what comes up. That's where it starts. Not with a plan, but with a question you're finally willing to ask. I'll see you in episode 3.